Politics is a very interesting game. When the BBI Secretariat announced the postponement of the official launch of signature collection, which was supposed to be presided over by President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, the allies of William Samoei Ruto celebrated. They celebrated because they viewed that move as a big win for the deputy president and a big blow to Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga had insisted that the signature collection was going to go on. And assuming today in this country that President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga actually went ahead and launched the signature collection, who do you think would have gained most? In my view, the deputy president would have lost. But after the postponement, which happened after the president and the deputy president met for 3 good hours, it was a big win for the deputy president. Let's face it. When President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga had the handshake, that was in August 2018, William Ruto did not embrace it. And when they escalated that to building bridges initiative process, again, he never really supported it. And this was manifested so well when the report was launched at Bomas of Kenya, when the deputy president was given opportunity to speak. And he poked holes into that particular report. In fact, in the past 2 years, the deputy president has focused all his attention on discrediting the BBI process. So the postponement of that particular signature collection on that particular day actually was a big win for him. And today in this country, if you ask anybody, William Ruto is the biggest winner as far as the building bridges initiative process is concerned up to now. In fact, his allies and his supporters are walking with their heads held high. But why is the deputy president outwitting President Uhuru Kenyatta, who has the system, and Raila Odinga, who has the support of the masses? In my view, this is only possible because the deputy president has managed to achieve the following. Number one is perception. I've always maintained on this platform that politics is all about perception. It's a perception of numbers. Let me just ask you a very simple question, and I want you to answer it. Is the BBI document a good document? I want you to answer yes or no, or good or bad document. Is it a good or a bad document? I'm waiting for your answer. Okay, let me ask you another question. Is BBI a priority to Kenyans today? I want you to again answer yes or no. Now let me get back to the first question, which is BBI document a good document? I know most of you answered no. It's not a good document. And why have you answered that? I'm 100% certain, not 100, you can't be 100% sure. I'm slightly 90% sure that probably those who say BBI is a bad document have not even read it. So the deputy president has successfully managed to create the perception in the minds of Kenyans that the BBI document is a bad document. So he has won that perception war. Let me go to the second question. Is it a priority? Again, you'll say BBI is not a priority. Why is it not a priority? When we know in 2007, Kenyans went to election which was contested and people fought. When we know in 2013, people went to elections and a group of Kenyans felt they were not part of government, and of course, it took almost 3 or 4 months for Kenya to stabilize again. Why do you say it's not a priority when after 2017 general election, the first call which President Uhuru Kenyatta made was to bring Kenya together? It is not a priority today because of the current virus which is affecting the entire world. But why is it not a priority? Because remember, William Ruto and his troops were all over this country campaigning for 2022. They only stopped that when the virus started knocking at their door. It knocked at the door of MP Mirunga, who unfortunately succumbed. It knocked at the door of Nixon Korir. It knocked at the door of Mithika Linturi. The pastor who hosted the DP in Muranga succumbed. That's when now the DP president realized that corona is a serious thing. And he announced the postponement of his political activities. Before that, it was a priority. Now, it's not a priority. In fact, during that time, people like Aisha Juma, people like Mohaji Chopevu are on record in this country of claiming that the BBI and corona, that corona actually was a strategy or was being used by the government to stop William Ruto from proceeding with his campaigns. But today, the priority which Kenyans want to believe is the corona, which is a global pandemic. How are we going to deal with it? Kenya, I strongly believe, might not have the capacity to invent, but we can prevent. How do you prevent? Keep social distance, wash your hands, sanitize, avoid crowded places. So in Tanzania, they just concluded election under the pandemic. In America, they just concluded an election during this particular time. What stops Kenyans from concluding the BBI process? Because let's face it, Kenyans are on record as pushing for President Uhuru Kenyatta to lax the rules. But politics is about perception. So the DP president has won that perceptual war to an extent that Kenyans now view the virus as the most priority issue in the country. So he has won big there. That's number one. Number two is the BBI narrative. The proponents of the BBI process have actually failed big time in how they communicate. Their PR is so bad. Is BBI meant to create jobs for a few? Your answer is likely to say yes. But why are you saying yes to that? Because the narrative is not coming out clearly. So the DP president today has managed to carry the narrative of the BBI process. And because he's not supporting it, the narrative is moving around with is that of negativity towards the process. And Kenyans have actually swallowed the bait. And that's why sometimes I say the DP president is always a shrewd politician. So today in this country, the narrative, the BBI narrative, is being carried by people who are opposed to it. If you compare the narrative today and the narrative in 2010, when you were going for the constitutional change, which the deputy president, which the deputy president actually opposed, even at that time, something is very clear. That the narrative during that time was that Kenyans needed to change the constitution. Today, the narrative is not very clear. Can we do without the constitution? Or can we make some of these changes through parliament? Or are some of these changes can actually be made through administrative legislation? So the narrative is not coming out. So the deputy president is carrying that particular narrative today. So because of that, he's going. Number three is the propaganda. I've always told you guys that politics is about interest, personal interest. How is this politics helping me? Is BBI meant to help the deputy president, William Ruto, become the president of the Republic of Kenya? No. Is it meant to help Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta achieve their political objectives? Yes. So that's the truth. And in my view, BBI has some bad things, but also it has some very good things. So who is carrying the day as far as propaganda is concerned? Again, William Ruto. Today, if you ask anybody, they will tell you that the process is divisive. How is it divisive? How do you know that the process is divisive? Even in families, people disagree. If you have a land you want to sell, there's someone who will say, let us not sell this. Some will say, let us sell it and use the money, blah, blah, blah. Is BBI process divisive? Who has created that propaganda? Let me tell you how the deputy president created this. When the deputy president started going outside there and hitting at propaganda every single day, the proponents were just quiet. Then he went to the church. He mobilized every other group. So today, the narrative outside there is that the process is divisive. It's not inclusive. How is it not inclusive when Uhuru Kenyatta got massive votes in this country? When Raila Odinga got massive votes in this country? Their supporters are not telling you, people who support Uhuru Kenyatta are not telling you that they don't support this process. People who support Raila Odinga are not telling you that they don't support this process. So he has managed to win that through that divisive narrative and propaganda. And then the other propaganda is that it's going to burden the taxpayers. The question is how? That it's very expensive to run a referendum. That instead of using 14 billion, let us use that money on COVID. As if today, if you allocate that 14 billion to COVID, COVID will be there, will be gone. And as if that's the only amount of money available in this country. Remember, when COVID came, someone sat somewhere and swindled the government billions and billions of money. I'm sure today, some other scandals, people have swindled this government billions and billions. But why are we focusing on the BBI process? Something which has taken Uhuru and Raila 2 years. So he has carried the day. Number 4, why he has outtweeted these guys is corruption. When Uhuru and Raila came up with a handshake, they came up with a 9-point agenda. One of them is fight on corruption. And he started, and he took a political angle to an extent that allies of the deputy president were being kicked out. But how has this affected the BBI process? This is how it has affected. A pandemic hit Kenya and the entire world sometimes early this year. And Kenyans were really desperate. Today, if you're arrested, you pay money. In fact, the police, like I've seen them in Kisumu here, they just walk around, chase people. So if you are arrested, unatoa 500 unaenda. So you wonder, where do people get 500? And the other question is, assuming you are a Kenyan, you don't have a mask, you have 200 bob, and then you have options mbili, chakula na mask. Which one would you go for? Most Kenyans would go for mask. So the government ought to have made the mask available to every Kenyan. In fact, I'm very happy with the Acacia Hotel in Kisumu. Anytime you enter that hotel, you get a mask free. Then they sanitize you. So that they don't have to ask you, where put on your mask. Of course, it's your own responsibility to protect yourself. But Acacia Hotel in Kisumu are doing perfectly well in that front, and I want to appreciate them for that. It's an hotel I've visited, I think after this pandemic 3 times. But I've seen them give people, even me, there's a day, they gave me mine. Because, you know, the quality is not very good. So, ile nini ilitoka. So they told me, we wacha hiyo yako chukua hii. So, corruption. It came. And money meant for things like mask disappeared. So Kenyans are carrying the burden of masks. Then you tell them there's a BBI. They can't buy. And then someone took all the money for that. And nothing has happened to him. Then you want to tell them BBI, they want. Number 5 is the civil society and the church. When Uhuru Kenyatt and Raila Odinga were pushing for the BBI process, they forgot to involve the church, they forgot to involve the civil society. I strongly believe. Because if they involve the church properly, the church would not be making noise today. And the importance of involving church, in my view, would have been because of their previous stand on the 2010 constitution. The church opposed the 2010 constitution. And William Ruto then took advantage of the church and campaigned for no. So Uhuru and Raila ought to have focused more on the church so that they bring the church all their issues. Of course, where we have Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, atheist, and the rest, there can't be really consensus. But if they are involved, the temperature is a bit lowered. The civil society, who have always supported Raila Odinga, this time they're not with Raila Odinga. Some of them want to go to the deputy president, but they're not going because, of course, again, the reputation. But they're not being involved. So they're opposing. And because they're opposing, the only hope now is William Ruto. And lastly is PR. I think the BBI process and the entire BBI, their communication strategy is off. If they had a proper communication strategy, they would not be struggling. In fact, even that launch of signature collection, which was postponed, probably the announcement would have made it appear as if the main reason for that was because of the bill and not because of the meeting between Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. So in my view, in general, I think William Ruto, so far, has outwitted Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga as far as the Building Bridges Initiative process is concerned. Unless you have a contrary opinion, thank you, and please may you have a good day.